Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to be going over keyed particles in Blender, which for some reason has a little bit of mystery behind it, but once you figure it out, it's actually not too hard. It's really fun because you can morph between objects and even daisy chain particle systems together, so there's a lot of uses for it. Super fun. And this is actually a little bit of a special tutorial for me because I actually just released my first training series. It's available at CMI VFX and you can get it in the link below. So this tutorial is actually a little bit of a teaser for that because it's one of the projects that we do in that series. So the series runs just under 3 hours and it's full of all sorts of information from all the different particle physics types like Newtonian, Boyd's, fluid, keyed, goes over all that stuff, every single force field, covers dynamic paint and how to use that with particles, collision objects, tons of fun stuff. So if you're interested in that, it's in the link below, and I would really appreciate it because it helps me give out free content like this. So without further ado, let's get into Blender. So here we are inside of Blender. First thing we need to do is make a couple objects for our particles to transform in between. So I'm going to keep this cube, but I'm going to move it off to the left. I'm going to add a monkey. I'll just put it right there. And let's have another object be a sphere. So we have three simple objects, and we want our particles to transition in between the three. So first of all, we need to have a particle system on each one, because we're going to be using keyed particles, and that requires us to channel through other systems. So you'll see what I mean as we go along. So first let's add a particle system to this cube, but we want the particles to retain the shape of the cube instead of just falling down like they would normally. So I'm going to change the start time to 1, so all of the particles are there right at the start. Turn the velocity all the way off so that they're not coming out of the cube at all, they're sticking right on. And if you want, you can change the emit from to volume, and that way you can see it keeps the shape inside and not just the shell. And we need to turn this up a bit higher so we can see the shape better, so let's say 15,000. And now we have a bunch of cube-shaped particles that even when you play the animation, oh, they do still fall. Let's turn off physics, and now when we play it, they don't go anywhere. So we just have a solid thing of particles. Let's do the exact same thing on this monkey, but what we can do is actually use the same system. So when we add a new one under settings, we can choose the settings from the previous cube, and I'm just going to name this system doing nothing, because these particles are not doing anything, they're just taking the shape. I'm going to add that same system to this sphere, and now this is the important thing. We have three different particle systems, but they all have the same number of particles. So that's, first of all, how we use keyed particles. This is the basis of what we need to now transition in between the three. So we need an object to be a sort of controller for our keyed particles. So I'm going to add a new object, and I'll just have it be a cube. I'll place it back here. I'm going to add a new system. I'm going to call this keyed. And down here under physics, we can change from Newtonian to keyed. Now when we play this back, it just seems like a somewhat normal particle system, but we don't really have any keys down here, and that's what we need to do. But of course we want them all to start on the first frame as well. We don't want them to gradually appear over time like that. So let's change the start time to 1 as well, and the lifetime to 250. That way they don't disappear. And it looks like these are disappearing as well, so let's change their lifetimes to 250. But the cool thing is, if we change it on 1, since they're all using the same system, it'll change for all of them. A second important thing is that they're all having the same number of particles. So you can see on this one we used 15,000, so let's give this one 15,000. Okay, so now we can use these particles to transition in between these three. So under the keys section here, we can add three systems. The first one, I will choose our cube object. The second one, I'll choose our monkey object. And the third one, our sphere. Now when we play in between these, we have particles morph from one to the other, just like that. And that's pretty sweet, but we also have a little bit of extra control. Because we can specify exactly when they're going to transition. So I can check use timing, and that'll allow us to use these buttons down here, time and duration. So time is when the particle system is going to start at that object, and duration is how long it's going to stay. So say we want our particle system to be at our cube for maybe 30 frames. Well, we want it to start on frame 0, but we want it to last 30 frames, so I'm going to change the duration to 30. For this monkey, maybe I want it to, say, start at frame 80, so all of that time in between is going to be transition time. So I'll say time 80. And I want that to last until frame 140. So we can just do a little math and say 140 minus 80 is going to be 60. So we want it to last 60 frames. And then the sphere, I don't know why I keep selecting them. So the sphere, we want it to last at 180. And we don't have to set a duration because it'll just last, it'll just stay there until the particles run out. So now when we play in between these two, it's going to stay on the cube for a while, transition to the monkey, stay there, and transition to the sphere. So this is pretty sweet. But the cool thing about this is that we can use this for moving particles as well as still particles, as you could see in the introduction, that little title animation. So let's do something cool in between the monkey and the sphere. Let's have it so that the cube transforms into the monkey and then goes on a twisting path. So we want it to, I don't know, do something interesting. So let's add a curve. I'll add a path, scale it up, go into edit mode. You can choose everything with A, W, and subdivide. That'll give us some more points to work with. And I'm just sort of randomly giving this a path to follow because we want it to take a journey in between the monkey and the sphere. Okay, so the particles are going to follow that path. So let's add a new particle system. This one can be from the monkey, but we need to have the same number of particles as before, remember, so let's go 15,000. And see, it looks like let's check that off so we're not distracted. Looks like the monkey ends right about frame 140. So let's have the start frame 140 and the end frame about 180, because that's the time it takes to go in between those two. And I'll turn the lifetime up, let's see, actually I'll change that to 40 frames because that's the time in between those two. Alright, so now we have that. Oh, I should have set the start frame to 140. 180 is when we want the lifetime to end. Sorry, that was my bad. So we want it to start when the monkey is coming out, the monkey's particles are coming out, and stop. We want the lifetime to end around when the time it gets to the sphere. Okay, so now we can choose this curve, go into the physics options, and add a force field curve guide. So now we have particles that want to follow along there. You can see we have those monkey particles that do that. Okay, so now with the keyed particles here, we can add another system in between the sphere and the monkey. So I'm going to choose, actually first of all with the sphere, let me, well actually it should be good. I was going to bump up the time so they don't overlap, because if you overlap the timing they'll have issues, but I think it should be fine in this case since we already have a gap. So I'm going to choose Suzanne, particle system 2, and we want to start at 140 and last, we want a little bit of a transition between the monkey and the sphere. So let's say we want it to end at frame 175. So let's say 35 frames. Okay, now when we play this back, we can see it stays at the cube, transforms into a monkey. It looks like it jumps. Okay, maybe this duration is a bit too high, so we don't want them too close together. Let's see if that helps. There we go. So now it follows the monkey and then transforms into the sphere. So the way we can view this without any of this distracting stuff here is we can just hide everything else. So you can hit the slash on your number pad, and that'll localize that object, go into local view, so that's the only thing we're seeing, and we can play it back. And we can see our particles transforming from one object into another, taking that path, and ending up right there at the end. So you can do a lot of fun things, especially with force fields and all that sort of stuff, transforming objects from one into the other, and all of that cool, awesome stuff. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something awesome. If you want to learn more about particles, check out the tutorial series I did for CMI VFX. Again, the link is in the description below. We cover tons of fun stuff like fluid particles, Boyd's particles, all the force fields, so that's really helpful. Hair, grass shattering, tons of cool stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.